Hello, hello, my friend. I hope that you are well today. I hope that you are amazing. But if you are not, if you are feeling depressed and sad or angry, then I also want to hold space for you in that. This is a safe space for you to show up authentically. I believe it is really important for educators to show up authentically because when we show up authentically, we give our students permission to show up authentically. When we show up authentically, then we are fully acknowledging the way that we feel, then we can process that and then we can work through it. And we are then empowered to be able to help our students to work through some of the emotions that they have. And that's a beautiful thing. So I want you to know that you can show up authentically in this space. Now, that is literally not what this episode is about at all. Okay. This episode is actually answering a question that I received from a teacher on Instagram. And that question is, can a substitute teacher use culturally responsive pedagogy? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is possible. There's not really even anything for me to think about. The answer is yes. And this is the reason why my answer is yes is because culturally responsive pedagogy is not restricted to a set of resources or a particular curriculum, right? I think many times it is assumed that culturally responsive pedagogy is for the English class or the social studies class and for the classroom teacher. But it's not. Like culturally responsive pedagogy is a whole entire vibe. It's a way of being. It is reflected in your mindset and your actions. And for this reason, everybody in the school building can leverage the power of culturally responsive pedagogy. Everybody from the cafeteria and the front office staff to the classroom teachers and the substitutes. Now, if you do want a bit more clarity around what culturally responsive and culturally relevant pedagogy are, I explained this in depth at length in season 2, episode 8. And that one is called 5 Ways to Use Culturally Relevant and Responsive Pedagogy in Your Classroom. You can pop back there, listen, and then come back to this one. So now, I said that yes, substitute teachers can use culturally relevant pedagogy, or sorry, culturally responsive pedagogy. And I want to support that statement by letting you know that I was a substitute teacher before I got my first official teaching position. I worked at Winton Woods Middle School, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I started I did my student teaching there first. So I did student teaching in social studies, 7th grade social studies. And then after I graduated, I was asked to come back and be a long-term sub in an 8th grade ELA classroom. After I finished that long-term position, I think that was maybe 3 or 4 months. The classroom teacher had gone out. I think she had like knee replacement surgery or something, and so she was out for a while. And then I went on to take on some different short-term positions. But a lot of times I focus on my time at Red Springs Middle School and how that seed, right, working there was a seed that sparked the work that I'm doing now. But before Red Springs, there was Winton Woods. And teaching those students was truly transformational because it is what transformed my mindset and my confidence and my ability to teach and to understand the impact that I could have in the classroom as a substitute. So even though I didn't know that I was leveraging culturally relevant pedagogy and that I was using culturally relevant teaching practices, I absolutely was. So here is my advice. Here are some of my recommendations for substitute teachers to most effectively leverage culturally responsive pedagogy when in a classroom, no matter the length of time, right? So whether it's one class period, a full week, a long-term sub position, either way, you can do this. Now, understanding that culturally responsive pedagogy is a whole vibe, meaning your behavior, your beliefs, and your ways of being, you must first begin with your mindset. Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Are your actions influenced by limiting or empowering beliefs? What ideas or preconceived notions do you have about the impact you can have as a substitute? And then what ideas do you have about the students whose lives you get to impact? As you answer each of these questions, I want you to also think about why you answered them in a particular way. What is your life experience that has impacted the way that you maybe have answered those questions? What about your lived experience impacts the way that you show up in the classroom? Now, thinking through and reflecting on all of this is key. It is paramount before you ever step foot into the school building. Becoming and remaining a culturally competent substitute teacher is vital to the level of impact that you can have. In addition, I encourage you to enter the classroom ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Yes, full-time teachers have a lesson plan that they are giving to you and that they expect will be completed when they return. And it's important that that assignment does get completed, but it is more important that the students know that the welcoming and inclusive classroom environment that has been created by their teacher, the one that makes them feel safe and the one that is actually needed for them to thrive, is still going to be a thing when the substitute teacher is present. And I think that that is where there is some disconnect, right? That there's this misconception that students should behave in the same way with this stranger as they do with the teacher that they know and are familiar with. And I disagree. I don't think that students should be expected to just trust whoever it is that has walked into their classroom. Trust has to be earned. Respect, it's earned. Like I'm going to respect you to a certain degree because you're a human being, but the type of respect that many times we are demanding from students, I'm sorry, like if a substitute teacher shows up in the classroom and that energy is off, or there is more of a focus on control, right, and power over connection, you're going to lose the students. You're going to lose them. So, and many times I say this, but we can maybe agree to disagree. I just do not believe that our students should just be expected because an adult stands in the classroom that, oh, I'm going to like treat you the exact same way, right? It takes time to develop a trusting and a respectful relationship. And even for a substitute who has been in that building for a long time or has covered that class several times, they still have to reestablish trust and respect each time they enter the classroom. And so as a substitute, that is one of the places where I would highly encourage that you focus. That is culturally responsive. Because once you understand what respect and trust mean to those students, and once you have reflected on what trust and respect mean to you, now we can have a conversation. Now we can find some common ground and we can figure out how we show respect and trust to each other. To each other. Now, the other thing to consider is that it's not that your students may not necessarily be respectful. Maybe they're in shock. These students may not be prepared for a substitute teacher. And so they may be in shock that someone new is entering their circle, and that can be overwhelming for them. There are some students that really find it challenging to shift from their established routine. Even if they were prepared, they still find it challenging to shift from their routine. And there is a certain level of shock that comes with this shift for different types of students. And so we have to honor that. On top of that, there is an energy surrounding and being emitted by every person. If the substitute teacher's energy says power over connection, like I just mentioned, right? Then you may get some pushback. If that energy says power over safety, you may get some pushback. Or The students may stay in line because they are scared. And I don't know if that's really the feeling that we want our students to get. And trust me, they will remember that. They will remember the way that you made them feel if it was submission because of fear and terror. So I just encourage you to step into the classroom with an energy that says connection over power, an energy that says, I may only be here for a short period of time, but your story matters. Like, I want to know you. I want to get to know you. And so that's where that first bit comes in. So listen, there are a few ways to do this. Let's say that the teacher has a bell ringer, a starter, whatever you want to call it, for the students to do when they first enter the classroom. I would recommend that you allow the students to complete that, right? Because that's what they're used to doing. That's their normal routine. But then launch into your listening space. And again, there are several different activities that you can use to hear the students and to build a rapport with them. But here are three of my favorite. So the first is to use picture books. Using picture books is a great way to begin a conversation so that you can learn about what the students value. And I personally love and have used Kobe Yamada's books. He's got several books, but the three that I love to use are What Do You Do with a Chance? What Do You Do with an Idea? And What Do You Do with a Problem? And for those of you that are watching this podcast episode, here is one of the books. Here is another. And here is the final one. So I love to use these books because Kobe Yamada asks three very important questions. And they are questions that your students can answer without any they don't have to know the facts, right? There doesn't have to be any pre-work that's done. Because what do you do with an idea? Well, okay, there's not a right or wrong answer that I'm looking for. I'm trying to hear what you are saying. Some of the things that I like to talk about with my students are the symbols that are in the book. I want to see how they are interpreting those. So what does a chance look like in the book? What does an idea look like? How is it represented? How's a problem represented? And then there are not just discussions, but I like to also have the students sometimes draw pictures or complete just an independent quick write where they are thinking about a chance that they have taken, either academically or personally, and think about how that all panned out for them. So same idea for an idea or a problem, right? So picture books, definitely recommend that. The second way that you can start to listen to your students is by having them complete a gallery walk. I believe that establishing norms is extremely important. And for this reason, I put 4 or 5 words up in the classroom, up around the classroom. And then I have the students visit the 2 words that resonate most with them, jot down one example and one non-example for each. And then I share out the ideas that were put on the poster paper that's next to that word. Students are also welcome to share if they want, right? But now I've created a space where they've been able to share, but then they don't have to share their specific ideas if they don't feel safe doing that yet. But if they do, then they are welcome to. So then from the ideas that we got, so let's say that we use the word respect, since that's one that we talked about earlier, respect and trust. Once I know what they feel is respect and not respect, then now we can compile a norm that is centered around respect. The third idea for ways to hear your students is an activity called pick a color. So I either do this with markers or with Post-it notes, and I have students choose a color as they are entering the classroom. So this doesn't necessarily disturb their flow, right? They can pick the color and then go sit down and complete their starter or their do now, whatever you want to call it. Based on the color that they've chosen, then after they've finished their starter, they get to go to a different area of the classroom. In each area, there is a different activity. So depending on grade level, I may use several quotes, and then the students can choose the quote that they feel like resonates with them, right? So like I put the quotes on a sheet of paper and I cut them out, laminate them, and I stick those on the table so that they can kind of choose the quote that resonates with them. Sometimes I also have them discuss those quotes with the group of people that are at that, at their table section. Just depends on how many kids are there. And then another way that I do this is, or another space in the classroom is a space where they can paint. So just bring in watercolors and some like printer paper. I allow them to paint based on how they are inspired by other paintings that I have laid out. So I want to see how their minds are working and where their genius is. So that's one activity. Another activity is that I print out pictures of different cartoon characters and I have the students choose the cartoon character that they feel like most closely either aligns with their personality or someone that they think is funny, or like why did you choose this cartoon character, right? So they can do that. We can also do a section of the classroom where there are different words to describe personality traits, and the students can choose which words they feel like fit them best and then talk about that. You can also use picture books, right? We can always use picture books. Maybe you set out a few different picture books and the students get to browse through them and choose the picture book that they feel like the message in that book resonates with them and is one that they really enjoy and appreciate. So the possibilities are literally endless, right? But either way, while the students are participating in these different activities, I can walk around the classroom and I can listen to what they're saying. I can observe the way that they're painting or the pictures that they're choosing, and I can start to understand who they are. That is so important. And now, after we've done this, then we can shift into whatever assignment the teacher has, because this is not a long activity. Maybe we take about 10 minutes to do this activity. And yes, the students may want to say, oh, we want to have more time, but we want to also honor and respect the teacher and the assignment that has been given. But just letting them know that, hey, I want an opportunity to see your genius. I want to see you shine. And I want to connect with you. I want to hear your story and see who you are. And so let's do this little activity. Completing these types of activities not only allows me to listen and learn more about the students and who they are, but it allows me to leverage the information that I've learned from them when I'm helping them with their work. So as I'm walking around to help them with their class assignments, or I'm answering questions for them, and then even if I am staying in this classroom for a long-term sub position, I am likely going to have to do some lesson planning. I've never been in a long-term sub position where I didn't have to do any planning at all. It was always something. So if I'm going to plan, I need to know who my students are. And this allows me to do that. And I can leverage this connection with my students time and time again. And now they know that I care. They know that I heard them, because when I see them again, I remember some of those details, right? Because it's not just like, oh, we're sharing in class and everyone is like talking and just saying things, but I'm actually seeing them create things, right? I'm seeing them take one thing and analyze and synthesize and all of that, and then create something new or process through that. So it's a much more sticky experience, as we'll say. Okay. So a culturally responsive classroom is one where students feel safe. They feel safe because they are seen and they are valued. A culturally responsive classroom is one where the teacher prioritizes connection and relationship over pretty much everything. A culturally responsive classroom is one where the teacher listens to the students in order to learn more about who they are and what they value, in order to leverage this information to respond thoughtfully when interacting with each and every student, and when establishing rules and expectations and designing lessons, and when guiding the students in their interactions with each other. A culturally responsive classroom is one where the students are empowered. Their personhood is valued and they are given respect regardless of how they present, right? Racially, sexually, ethnically, all of those It doesn't matter how they present. We respect them. And none of these things have anything to do with curriculum. Nothing. But they do have everything to do with your beliefs, your behaviors, and your way of being, the way you show up. It has everything to do with you showing up authentically and inviting your students to show up authentically. So yes, the answer is yes. A substitute teacher can absolutely, definitely use culturally responsive pedagogy. And as I wrap up this episode, I want to say that a substitute teacher could have an incredible and lasting impact on a student's life. A dynamic experience can, at very least, teach a student that engaging with new people in positions of authority does not have to be scary or a power struggle. It can be fun, engaging, respectful, and encouraging. Ooh, empowering. Whew. Yes, I am excited for all the substitute teachers and all the students who will be impacted by the experience they have with you. Cheers, my friend.